Hi guys, well later than expected due to a cock-up at customs, today we're going to be checking out the Corsair iCUE 220T RGB Airflow. This was originally going to be called the Graphite 220T, but Corsair has kind of redefined their naming system. And so what we've got here today is a small mid-tower chassis, an obvious focus on airflow and RGB lighting. Corsair has designed the front grille to optimize the airflow within the case, and it's a good job too, because behind that grille we have a trio of SP120 RGB Pro fans. And those fans are linked up to the lighting node core, which transforms 220T into a smart case, since we can customize the lighting with the iCUE software. And so 220T is available in black or white, and for a change we're going to be checking out the white version today. In terms of the pricing for this case, it's going to float around 100 in the UK, 100 in the US, and then 160 in Australia. And so that is, pretty competitive territory for cases, and initially that does appear to be quite expensive for what you get. But let's not be too hasty, as we're going to jump in and check out this case in plenty of detail. And before we get into our review, today's video is brought to you by Be Quiet and their Dark Rock Slim CPU cooler. The Dark Rock Slim is a high-performance heatsink designed for both Intel and AMD platforms with a TDP rating of 180 watt. And as its name suggests, the Dark Rock Slim uses a compact design, making it possible to use in smaller configurations. It is also incredibly quiet with near silent operation. We actually reviewed this cooler in May and we gave it our premium award based on our experience with it. You can check out that review on the screen and find out more info at the link in the description. Right guys, well as we always do, we're going to start at the front of 220T. So here we have a steel panel which is heavily ventilated with patterned cutouts. Around the grille we have this grey plastic surround, and there is more space around the sides for the air to get in. Oddly enough, there is no access at the bottom. Now this panel can be easily removed. All we've got to do is simply lift it off like so. And underneath that we've got a detachable dust filter which again is easily removed. And then beyond that we've got three SP120 RGB Pro fans, and so those are positioned as intakes to bring in cool air across the system. Now the front panel connectivity sits in the usual spot at the top, and it consists of a power button, two USB 3 ports, a headphone and mic combo port, and the reset button. And so just the basics there, and looking at this purely from the aesthetics, would have been nice to see those ports in black rather than blue, as they seem to just stand out too much. Up at the top of 220T we have this magnetic dust filter which peels away to reveal the mounting spots for two 120 or 140mm fans. As you can see, these aren't included, so you're going to need to install these yourself. Okay, so for the side panels, on the prominent side here we have this large tempered glass panel which gives us that edge-to-edge overview of the system inside. That panel is secured onto the chassis with 4 thumb screws. And over on the alternate side there is just this solid steel panel with no distinct features. That is held into place with 2 thumb screws from the back. With those panels removed, we now have this view inside 220T, and as you can see, this case follows a conventional layout for a computer case. It accommodates up to the ATX form factor, and around the case we have storage options for different sized drives and cutouts for cable management, and we're going to explore this now in more detail. Now the power supply sits at the bottom of the chassis, and it is concealed behind this shroud on the prominent side, and so it's necessary to install from the reverse side. However, if you have a longer power supply like us, which is 180mm, then you will need to remove that hard drive cage to get it installed, and it is very tight when you reattach that cage. Underneath the power supply there is this detachable dust filter which can be easily removed and cleaned. And as a rule of thumb, I would install that power supply as the first step in building the PC, simply because it is quite a challenge and you will want to route those cables in. Above the power supply we've got this series of 7 horizontal PCI covers, but no vertical ones, which is a bit of a shame as we're seeing more of those appear on cases nowadays, and it means you can rotate that GPU. Each of those covers have the ventilation cutouts and standard screws. Sadly, there is no rear exhaust in this case, and so this is something you'd have to add in yourself, and 220T can accommodate a 120 here. So at least we have the fans at the front bringing cool air in, and we definitely prefer this over having nothing at the front and just a rear exhaust. But it is still disappointing to see no fan here. Switching over to the alternate side, we have all of our storage. So this takes the form of a hard drive cage for the 2.5 and a 3.5 inch drives. Larger drives just drop into the tray in a toolless fashion, whereas the smaller drives need screws underneath. And then we have two metal trays which are exclusively for the 2.5 inch drives like an SSD. The trays are fixed to the back of the Mobo tray with a thumb screw, and then screws just need to be attached to the underside. Now the big feature inside 220T is the inclusion of Lighting Node Core. So this is an RGB lighting controller which offers us management of up to 6 RGB fans. It's important to note that this controller here is just for lighting and not for fan speed. And so to power that module, it requires a SATA connection from the power supply, and to interface with the PC, there is a USB 2 header. And with that, we can customize the lighting with Corsair's iCUE software. Okay, so next we're going to get a closer look at the clearance options within 220T to verify what fits and what doesn't. And so for the CPU cooler, Corsair specify 160mm, and you can see here our Hyper 212 clearly fits in no problem. In the graphics card department, due to the case being more condensed on the depth, there is around 300mm before you run into trouble. The RTX 2070 that we've got installed here fits perfectly without any issues, and so for most high performance cards this won't be a problem. Now the location behind the Mobo tray is important for storing cables, but there isn't a lot of space to play with here, around 1.5cm. And since we don't have a lot of space, you will need to carefully plan out where you want those cables to go. And like I said earlier, if you install the PSU first, that is going to give you greater control and more space to play with. And for water cooling, there is space and allocation for a 240 at the top of the case. And then at the front, there is the option to install a 360mm radiator. However, you are going to need to remove that hard drive cage because, as you can see, it will prevent the radiator and the fans being installed. Okay, well that completes our look at the 220T, a small mid-tower chassis which adds in the triple RGB Pro fans, tempered glass panel, and also marries up to that iCUE ecosystem. As far as the build quality goes, pretty sturdy case. This one presents us with no problems. Inside it can house most CPU coolers with the addition of water solutions in different places. It can house high performance graphics cards, supplies us with a support there for SSDs and the larger mechanical drives. Where things do get a bit tricky is the cable management, especially if you've got a long PSU like us. It will be crucial really to remove the hard drive cage in order to get that unit in and arrange the cables. So in this case, it is a bit of a mixed bag, as there are a few things which, while not detrimental, are disappointing. Due to the ventilation on this case, it is quite exposed, and as such the fans can be heard pretty easily, as you might be able to tell. And I guess that is a bit of a trade-off with having a design which focuses on airflow. The blue USB ports really stand out, and for me they ruin the styling on this case, especially for this white version. The lack of a rear exhaust fan isn't good, and certainly doesn't tally up to that high airflow characteristic which Corsair are pushing for. And then we have the price. It is around 100 in the US, UK, and also 160 in Australia. And I think, it could really perhaps struggle at that price point based on what you get and what you don't get. But what do you guys think of this case here? Let me know in the comments box below, and also cast your vote in the top right corner. For the cooling performance on this case and also the full review, check out the link on the screen and also in the description. Thanks very much for watching today, guys. Please like this video, please subscribe to the channel, and take care. I'll see you guys next time.